I'm your host, Allison Danger. Welcome and thank you for listening in on the first episode of DEATHinitely. Whatever.
This is the DEATHinitely intro episode. Technically, episode 1, but whatever.
The show that takes death seriously so you don't have to. I'll be your internet death daddy, your deathspert, and resident research junkie. I'm on a quest to learn everything about death and pass that knowledge along to you in a 10-piece nugget-style meal for your ears.
Don't forget that I'm here. I'm Jordan. Hi. Deathspert. Hey, welcome to the...
With me, as always, is Jordan, the producer.
Thanks, don't leave me out. What else is going on with your episode, Allison?
If you like what you hear today, check out today's show notes for all of the DEATHinitely socials and information.
Awesome.
So my computer's being dumb, sorry.
That's what happens when you're doing a podcast.
Ill-prepared?
No, it's not. You're not ill-prepared. You're perfectly prepared for this episode.
Yes.
If anyone asked me, hey, I'm looking for a person that will host a show about death.
That will do something at 155%.
That's mathematically incorrect.
Yes.
I would choose Allison Danger 155% of the time.
Oh, yeah, I see what you did there.
Yeah, thanks. That's a callback.
Yeah, that's good. So we're logging in, tuning on, tuning in.
Turn around.
Yes. If you like what you hear today, I'm going to say this again. Check out today's show notes for all the DEATHinitely socials and infos. DEATHinitely is an independent show and is made possible by generous people like you. If you like what you hear today or want to know all of the things, please be sure to subscribe wherever you listen to your podcasts, or you can join our mint condition, fresh out of the box Patreon. This is our first episode, our inaugural episode, so it's going to be a little bit different than the other ones to come. Firstly, it's going to be shorter, and this is an intro show so that you get to know who we are, what we're talking about, why you should be here, and how awesome it is.
I know it's going to be awesome because I have been with you every step of the way while you build these podcasts. I'm lucky enough that I get to sit in and be the audience. You know, like when you're in a movie, right? And
Thanks.
There's a guy or a girl, there's a character in a movie that's always the proxy, the audience proxy.
The audience proxy. You're my audience proxy.
That's me.
Oh,
Jordan,
hi.
the audience proxy.
Jordan, the audience proxy.
I need to get a t-shirt that says that.
Sounds good.
So
Find it in the merch.
You have a merch? You have merch now?
No.
Oh, that's awesome. I don't know how that happened. That was pretty dang quick.
Audience proxy.
So every episode, Allison, this is the intro show, right, that you would just said.
Yeah, that's right.
It's an intro to the world of death, all the fun death things that you're going to be talking about over
the history, science, and philosophy of death. Tagline we're going with.
That's definitely amazing.
Definitely
amazing.
I take it seriously, so you don't have to.
So what kind of topics can we expect to hear?
So I'm going to talk to you about the world of death, but I'm also going to let you know why you should care that I'm telling you about it. So a little bit about me and a little bit about death and what's coming up next. I'm going to talk about some of the topics that you would expect me to, and I'm also going to let you know why you should give a flip-flop on the beach's care about why I'm saying it. Other episodes will cover a more singular focused general topic, but this is like the appetizer, the hors d'oeuvre, the amuse-bouche. So let's amuse your bouche.
Hors d'oeuvre. Bouche.
I'm not the Swedish chef.
Swedish chef, yeah. It's like we looked each other right in the eyes and
it was like Erzberg.
Yes. Swedish chef. Imagine the Swedish chef was the co-host.
If we could have Kermit the Frog as a guest,
Okay.
my life will be complete.
Okay, sounds good to me.
Yeah. So thank you for listening in. Dip that toe in the ocean and kick off your flip-flops and let all those dead little sea creature shells crunch between your toes. This is definitely the podcast that takes death seriously so you don't have to.
Nelson?
Yeah.
This show, definitely. This show. Why should people be listening to this show?
Well, DEATHinitely is a show that talks about death, how it impacts the areas of our lives, and what it all kind of means. What that is like the jerk answer is that death affects everything to everyone all the time. The real answer is that it gets into things like academics, the social constructs, the environment, emotions, science, philosophy. The list is really long and involved and detailed. But as a group of people in North America and the countries that have been socially influenced by North American norms, death isn't really a topic that gets the attention it deserves. The general thought is that death is scary. It's this unknown or unknowable, this weird ethereal thing that we are all kind of curious about.
Mm-hmm.
So the truth is that there's plenty of resources and studies and books and people talking about dying, but they're not talking about death. Dying and death get lumped in to this kind of messy pile for a lot of people.
Yeah.
Really, they're very, very different things. Example, dying's the act of moving from living to dead. It's this dynamic, ever-changing thing. It's a process. It's moving from point A to point B, going from point A living to point B dead. Dying is the running in between the two. It's the ellipses on the paper.
It's interesting when you say that, because when you think of dying, it's the act of dying. Like you're dying up until when you're dead. Does that make sense? Like,
yeah,
that's
it occurs
kind of
over time. It's not a singular point.
Yeah,
on
it's
a
not
timeline.
it's not like that whole philosophical you're dying the day that you're born. It's
Right.
you get sick or something happens.
The actual act of the end of your life.
But I guess when you sit here and you equate these two things, I never once considered dying and death to be two separate things.
Right.
It's interesting. It's very
One's a
interesting.
process, one's a point.
Yeah, I just never thought, once someone puts it out onto paper or spells it out to you specifically, it makes a lot of sense. And I know that you just touched on it about how death is a very taboo subject here in North America.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm really interested to hear more about in future episodes where you go with that specifically.
And we will.
Yes.
Whoa!
Jeez.
I hit myself in the face with the microphone.
So
It's our first episode. What do you want?
One of the things of me as a producer sitting here watching Allison with the microphone, and I indicated to her, just move the mic
keep it further
a
away.
little bit away without saying to her, move it away. I had
Right.
to do some pantomime. And the first thing she does is she smacks
I
herself
smacked
in the face
myself
with
in
the
the lip.
microphone. I don't know how. I didn't say move it closer.
We're a classy production.
If this was a video podcast, my goodness,
It'd be so awesome.
it would be pretty awesome.
So back to the topic at hand. So unless you're really studying death and tearing it apart and really trying to dig into all of the academia behind it, death and dying get lumped into this pile. And mentally, emotionally, spiritually, all the ways that are important, death isn't dying and dying isn't death. So we have a lot of experts out there that study dying, but not a lot that study death.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Some of the greatest minds in the death sector have written wildly popular books about dying. They even get misconstrued as books about death itself, and people have a real problem again separating those things out. It's kind of like peanut butter and jelly. You make the sandwich, you put the peanut butter on one side, you put the jelly on the other side, unless you're an absolute lunatic and you mix them together before you put them on the bread. Once the peanut butter and the jelly are together, you can't undo that.
It's like toast, right? Once bread becomes toast,
Oh boy.
you can't untoast bread.
Do we just want a PB&J sandwich?
I think we do. Maybe we
Okay.
should. Is this a
Okay,
great? This is
we'll
a
be
great,
back in a minute. We gotta go make a jelly sandwich.
Now a word from our sponsors: the big peanut butter and jelly.
Peanut butter.
Allison, I know that you have an example of a misconstrued process and author. Can you tell me a bit more about that?
Yeah, so it's the one that everybody kind of knows and loves. You've heard it before, even whether you knew it or not. The big misnomer about dying and death being lumped together is from the late, great Elizabeth Kubler-Ross. It's the 5 stages. You know the ones, you've seen the episodes on TV where they meme them and joke about them. The robot chicken short with the giraffe that's trapped in quicksand. It's one of my all-time favorite episodes and one of the best depictions of this misnomer, but it's never actually portrayed properly.
Yeah.
I'll go into that a little bit more. The 5 stages are known as denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance. Kubler-Ross's book was called On Death and Dying, and it was actually an investigation and study about those who were actively dying, not people that had died or the bereaved for that matter. The masses, when they took in that information and this became wildly popular, they extrapolated that theory from the 5 stages that a terminal patient faces while actively dying, which is actually what the book is about, and the theory and the study is about. And they applied it kind of willy-nilly to the grief cycle. So not the same thing. Side note, don't believe me? Go to ekrfoundation.org and take a look at the trademarked section marked 5 Stages of Grief. With her wisdom and quick thinking, Elizabeth Kubler-Ross not only embraced the widespread misinterpretation of her theory, but she also trademarked it and gave a full explanation and reasoning behind the misnomer. Talk about turning a negative into a positive. She leaned into people's mistakes and made them exclusively hers. She doesn't say that you can't apply these stages to the grief cycle or that they don't apply, but it's not how they were studied or originally theorized.
It's interesting because only not just now, but recently you had told me about this, the 5 stages that were written, I guess, and created by Elizabeth Kubler-Ross. And you said to me, Jordan, it's the 5 stages of dying. And I'm like, what are you talking about? No, it's the 5 stages of grief. You're like, no, it's the
no.
And I honestly I'd never heard that before. Like this is a literal recent
it's
thing.
like this weird Mandela effect. It's just like permeated society that it's the 5 stages of grief, but that's actually not the case.
And it was an amazing thing. What happened was that almost immediately after, like a day or so after you told me about the 5 stages of death, right there on House, the character walked in and they said, "Oh, it's Kubler-Ross's stages of death," and I was like, Allison was right.
I get disproportionately upset about it.
It's cool. It's a good Mandela effect, though. I like that you really brought the zeitgeist of the Mandela
I
effect.
hate that word. So in the upcoming episodes, I'm going to strap on the death scuba gear and swim down into the ocean trenches and bring up all the treasure that the ocean of death research has to offer. Facts, findings, research, and a lifetime of professional experience and knowledge from the front lines of death care, all wrapped up in a treasure box for you.
Just for me?
For you.
On the audience proxy.
Audience proxy.
Yeah, so for everybody.
Audience.
For you. The audience. You. But the show isn't just about dispelling myths, right?
No, I mean, you're going to get the little factoids and the little cool things that you can say, hey, this thing on trivia night, or when you're hanging out with your friends, or if you really want to like creep out some dud that you matched with when you swipe to the particular way you're supposed to swipe when you go on a date. I don't know.
You know,
I'm too old for that.
If I was to creep out a date, I definitely would talk to them about the 5 stages of death.
Hey, dying, not death.
Dying. Sorry. Dying. That's why I'm
separate
here.
The sandwich.
So, well, you can't separate the sandwich.
Now
I'm lost.
Yeah, it's okay.
Okay.
The subject of death as an academic adventure is not one very often taken. As I said before, the subject of dying and the subject of grief are very often tackled, but not death as its own unique entity. Lots of people who study how not to die, so that dying part, commonly known as medicine, or what we do after somebody dies, grief and bereavement. We've got lots of people and experts and wonderful research in those categories. We've even got people who look at the religious or the spiritual side of death from an academic pursuit, thanatologists. But when it comes to death itself, there really is kind of a big old black hole of research around the event. Me, myself, I kind of shied away from my death knowledge for a long time. Tried to keep it hidden, kind of tucked away so I didn't have to deal with people or that were either way too into it or kind of repulsed by it. Our job is who we are as a part of our social construct in North America. People walk into a party, you meet somebody new and say, oh, hey, I'm so-and-so, and I'm, a lawyer. I work for, public defense or whatever they do. And then they're like, you are? And I'm like, oh yeah, I'm Allison. I'm an embalmer. And then it's fucking crickets every time. So we really do let our job define us. And I did that for a really long time, which was so counterproductive. Sometimes I'd say, oh, I work in an office and kind of redirect the hell out of that conversation. I mean, it's not a lie. I do work in an office, but it's an office that processes and looks after dead people. Do lawyers want to law or do surgeons want to surge when they're done work? I didn't always want to deal with the questions and answer period that people would definitely have about a job that's pretty unique.
Even though you do have one of the most interesting jobs
that nobody knows about.
which is really crazy.
Yeah.
I personally would want to know more, but that's just me. Not everyone feels
right,
the
and
same
that's
way.
super cool. But I don't always want to talk about it.
I agree.
Present podcast excluded.
You know what? And we're done.
So, and I mean, I was part of the problem then. I didn't talk about death. I didn't lean into the things that I had spent the better part of my adulthood working in, around, studying. But that's a whole other story for another episode, another time, another place, another space.
Save the content.
Save the empire.
Save the empire.
And now we're here. So I researched and studied death. I took my love of learning, science, and academia and stuck it and applied it to what I was already doing 8 to 10 hours a day, 5 days a week, which is insane. And I've done that for almost 20 years. Over the upcoming episodes, I'm going to talk to you about a giant list of things that I would casually say fall into the research black hole that is the topic of death. Sure, I'll be discussing, those cool headline-making things like the crazy and wild new ways people are using cremated remains, or, the frontier of disposition options. But I'm also going to talk about what it's like to be on the front lines during something like the COVID-19 pandemic. Is there such a thing as a good death? I'll also talk about things that are super nerdy, but also so fascinating, like the etymology of words in the death lexicon and why we are so socially terrified to talk about death. But here you are. You made it. You dipped the toe in the death pool. Side note, I said death pool, not dead pool. Do not put your toe in Ryan Reynolds. You paddled around the shallow end. Maybe you're ready to dive in? Deep end of research, maybe? We'll take you for a swim and in the surf wave water. That made no sense. Let's go surfing in the Death Ocean. Good on ya, either way.
What coast is the Death Ocean on? The Dead Sea.
Yes. Good. Yes.
Now, why should people listen to you, Allison?
Ooh, that's a hard question. I would say that I've got a plethora, hate that word, of death information to share. I've spent about 20 years in death care. My primary focus has been on embalming, but I have kind of done the whole deal. I studied for my undergrad at WLU, Wilfrid Laurier University. Go Golden Hawks. I also took the funeral service education course and graduated with honors from Humber College in Toronto. And this fall, I'm actually starting at Winchester University in the UK, and I'll be getting my master's in death, religion, and culture. I've also done a lot of research-based activities. I'm working on a research project with one of my alma maters, Humber, this fall. I do love science, but I hate hugging. And I've also authored and self-published a couple of comics, and I've also had a couple of comics published traditionally. So I've got a really unique voice that can speak about death study.
You happen to be a nerd when it comes to death.
I'm a super nerd when it comes to all things, but go on.
And a nerd when it comes to comic books.
If you want to learn more about me or some of the graphic novels I've written or worked on, you can search Allison Danger on Amazon.ca. I love robots, pop culture, and ordinary people doing extraordinary things. That's where my fictional writing lives. This is a place that my creativity lives. Blood and Motor Oil is for you robot lovers out there or drama lovers. The Best of Us is what I would call a superhero adjacent story, but it tackles end of life for aged people with special abilities. The other one is We Save the World, and it's kind of a smash and grab pile of fun. It feels like a blend of Teen Titans Go and meet Scooby-Doo.
Nice.
Love Scoobert Doobert.
He's our favorite.
My readings are usually for research purposes, and for those that are keen-eared listeners, I bet you'll pick up on some topics from future episodes tucked into the books that I talk about as well.
So what are you reading this week?
This week I am reading To Be a Machine by Mark O'Connell. He's an Irish writer, and it's a nonfiction novel about transhumanism. For those of you that may not know what transhumanism is, or are not familiar, it's the theories and pursuit of living forever, evolving as humans by way of computers, tech, and robotics. So it covers things like cryonics, downloading your brain or consciousness into computers, and augmenting your body through robotics. It's an interesting read, but I'm not done yet. The other thing I'm reading this week is the 1993 trade paperback of The Death of Superman. In case the title of this one left something to your imagination, it's the gathered issues of the Superman serial comic that covers the death of the men from Kansas by way of Krypton.
Superman died?
In 1993.
I knew that.
He's back.
I am also a nerd.
You're worse than me.
Yes.
When it comes to Superman.
Well, yes.
Yes. Definitely wants to take death seriously, so you don't have to. We're creating a safe and inclusive space that tackles the mundane, the profound, crazy parts of death that you don't feel like asking anywhere else. So please listen in, participate, comment, love, learn. I'm happy that you're here. A big thank you goes out to the inaugural episode listeners and the followers that stuck it out. In the upcoming episodes, you'll see topics like death icons, not the Grim Reaper or the devil, but the iconography and how it applies to death. Spoiler, the penultimate death icon is the skull. Episode 2, we'll talk about death language, how we talk about death to one another in our media and creatively, how language has changed when it comes to death, and why we are so dang afraid to say the word dead. We're planning on having field reps and experts from all different places that are what I would refer to as death adjacent, like healthcare, palliative care, death doulas, grief yogis, first responders, all that kind of good stuff. But again, it's that jerk answer. We all have something to say about death. We're all death adjacent. So don't hesitate to drop a line in the comments or DM the Instagram account about a topic that you would want to hear. But as far as other upcoming episode topics go, you'll have to know more and you'll have to wait and find out. DEATHinitely is an independent show which is recorded on the ancestral homes of several Mississauga and Chippewas First Nations. We honor these Indigenous people, their ancestors, and future generations on this land that we share with reverence and humility. Thanks for tuning in. I'm your host, Allison Danger. Our editor and producer is Jordan Middlebrook. Our music's from Sound Bay. Thanks for being here, and I'll see you soon. Oh, no, we're not. We're going to cut that part out, Jordan, please.
We'll cut it out.